What up, Marsh Pod? Back from our travels. Did a little West Coast jaunt to learn a little bit about what's going on in the Pacific time zone. We'll get to that. College recruiting, what a handful of teams are starting to look at and what that might be. But first, two things that I've got to get to. The first, Rick is the victor. I have nothing but praise for old man Rick. He's right. Look, he just is. He's a better picker in two games than me, and I've got nothing to do but say that he's my daddy. To quote the great Pedro Martinez, Rick did it. He was right. It's not every now and again. It's quite often that he's right. I think that suffices of what the punishment is. But congratulations, Rick. You beat me on two of them. Yeah, there you go. He's right. Listen to anything he says, and he'll never be wrong, because it's not possible for Rick to ever be wrong, and that's the truth if you ever look for one. So now you know. Second thing, a little breaking news before we get to some college basketball. And breaking news, I guess, might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but what I'm hearing. So despite winning their last two games, there are some serious concerns in the North, specifically in, as is always going to be with young players, the parents. So Coach King has led the North to wins in their last two games over South America, an actually impressive win at home there, and then over Middle East. Middle East came into that game also not very good, loses of 3 in a row. That's now 4. And then, of course, South America, that was actually a surprising victory and a well-fought one. But the concern headed into that week was there's some skepticism from the parents involved that Coach King is not as involved as they would like to see him be. He has failed to really get, according to everything I've been told, he's failed to really get a strong respect and engagement with that roster. And as such, we've seen that 0-6 start. Things starting to turn around in those two wins. It doesn't get any easier. They get the Yacht Club up next, a Yacht Club team that's 4-3. They'll play them on the 17th, and then they close out the month with matchups in Colorado with Rocky Mountain Monsters and in St. Louis for Beyond the Arch. So there's room to go and opportunity for improvement, but at this point in time, it's a tenuous situation. Not that Coach King would be removed necessarily, but that this is a team and a following that is growing concerned about his level of engagement with the organization. So worth watching, worth keeping an eye on as that develops, and any developments from that, we'll make sure to keep you in the loop. Now on to the fun stuff, college hoops and who may be going where. So I took a trip out to the Bay Area to kind of get an idea of what that Bay Area Breakers team might look like, and also took a jaunt through some other Pac-12 towns and some non-Pac-12 towns to see if the talent level that exists in Bay Area is permeating its way up into the college ranks, and I'll tell you what it is. So started the trip out to Gonzaga, who has already been recruiting Caden Shipp, and I'm told that there is some serious interest from Gonzaga in terms of trying to land potentially Trey Hyman. Gonzaga is number 1 on Caden Shipp's list. That relationship between Shipp and Hyman may or may not necessarily impact a decision, but Gonzaga's looking to build a pipeline in some of these spots in SimWorld Hoops, and the first spot is Bay Area Breakers. That's not to say someone like Cascadia or Reigning Trays, a little closer to Spokane, couldn't make that connection, but right now there's a pair of teammates on Bay Area that Gonzaga is seriously considering going after. That's worthwhile because Caden Shipp also has followings in Oregon and Oregon State, 2 schools that would like to bring him up to the Pacific Northwest, and I'm told there's a very real possibility that that's where Caden Shipp ends up. But that's not the only spot that's interested, of course, in Trey Hyman. I'm told Arizona has also put his name near the top of their list. When you speak to these players and you speak to these teams, the biggest thing, especially in Bay Area, has been the most impressive part has been the level of camaraderie that they've developed. Those guys like playing with one another, and there is, from what I've been told, there's a very real chance that come next season, we're going to see a handful of these guys from Bay Area trying to team up and go at it one more time. So you look at the players, Trey Hyman, Royce Anderson, and Xavier Pope have all talked around the idea of potentially playing with one another. And so let's make the connection. What type of team might that look like? UCLA reportedly has Royce Anderson and Dime Hardaway near the top of their list, as well as Xavier Pope. So if you're going on that Royce, Trey, Xavier line, UCLA has two of the three. Now that does not mean that Trey Hyman isn't a potential option there. I think that he most certainly is, but at this point in time, it's early in the process that UCLA is targeting those two specifically. Again, doesn't mean Hyman can't be among that list. It's very early, but that's where we're at right now. Additionally on that list, staying in the Pac-12, Arizona has reportedly made some potential interest known in Trey Hyman, while Royce Anderson and Utah have been linked by those close to the Utes, and Arizona State has put Xavier Pope near the top of the list. These are all big moves, but the most consistent one is Pac-12, and it seems as if the Pac-12 has a inroads to Bay Area breakers, because it doesn't stop with them. You look at guys, Dime Hardaway, USC and UCLA have both expressed interest in potentially bringing him in. He is on their radar. Meanwhile, again, not necessarily specifically Pac-12, but Brigham Young and Nevada have both put Ronnie Shanahan near the top of their list. So it's early in that process. Again, I don't want to stress that enough, but if you're looking at where some of these guys might go, at least in Bay Area, it seems as if there's a very serious chance that these guys stay in the Western region, whether that be a Pac-12 team or not. One of the concerns with USC and UCLA is they are leaving the Pac-12. So that is something I've been told is very seriously on the minds of these guys. Do you really want to go to Rutgers in January to play a basketball game on a Thursday, or would you rather be at Arizona and Arizona State, Utah, Oregon State? Those are your opponents mid-season. I'm not going to act as if that it actually impacts players' schooling, but it's not a thing that these guys would have to be out there traveling across the country to play a basketball game in mid-season. So that's the big news, and it'll be an interesting development, because as the teams and players kind of swap interest, and I think the trio of Royce, Trey, and Xavier, who are currently composite ranked 18th, 11th, and 25th, respectively, those are guys that are going to impact a lot of things. If three of them end up at UCLA, for example, or Arizona, that's going to impact these other guys, and you want to look around at notable players that might end up at Arizona, and you've got Khalil Erickson has been targeted by them. Ireland Early has been targeted by Arizona. That could potentially change who ends up going to a team like that. So it's worth keeping an eye on. It's the most interesting at this point in the season, simply because that three-headed monster of wanting to play together is very real. I wouldn't put them on the same level of Chris Bosh, LeBron James, and Dwayne Wade, but it's not far away from that either. So that's the first wave. There's a lot more coming. I'd expect to see a flurry of interest levels expressed in the coming weeks, especially as some of these guys that previously entered the season unknown are starting to become more relevant and serious in terms of their overall play styles and skill set. So I'd expect those teams to start popping up a little more frequently as this expands, and we'll make sure to keep you in the loop. A second trip planned to the Midwest in the coming weeks should provide more answers. And that, we'll see you Thursday.